Thank you for your attention. Let's get the program started. I'm Darren Inverso, and I'm the chairman of the board at the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance. And I want to thank everybody for coming today in this joint luncheon between the Business Alliance, the Sarasota Chamber, and the Manatee County Chamber. And I want to give special thanks to the Institute of Public Policy and Leadership at USF Sarasota Manatee for making all these arrangements with Commissioner Putnam's office. Do we have any public officials with us today? If so, please stand up, besides those that are already on the list. Going once, going twice. Hey! Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to bring up to the podium Trudy Moon with the Manatee Chamber Chair to address the pledge.
Good afternoon. I'm Whoa. Whoa. Trudy Moon with Aaron Energy, and I'm the chairman of the board of the Manatee Chamber of Commerce. I just want to point out a few things just before the pledge. But what a great crowd! Everybody's ready. The Manatee Chamber sponsors today are Kaiser University and the Mosaic Company. So I do want to appreciate their continued Their support is ongoing, and we thank them very much. Actually, the Manatee Chamber of Commerce just got back from a very intense retreat for the weekend, and I see a lot of my fellow friends out there in a completely different light now. So the retreats are always worth going to and a lot of fun. But because you guys are ready to stand, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I thank you very much, and right now I want to have the pleasure to introduce, I do have the pleasure of introducing, a very personal, good friend of mine that works diligently, and he's so kind. Mr. Chuck Slater. Would you come to the podium, please?
Good afternoon. I am Chuck Slater, a 13-year full-time resident of Manatee County. Along with John Horn and Mac Caraway, we've gotten together to form a political action committee called Forward Manatee. And the sole purpose of this is to educate the public in Manatee County with regards to what's coming up on the agenda in November for voting. First of all, we want you to vote. It's your privilege as an American, please vote. Also, we want you to look at referendum number 6 and referendum number 7. 6 is a half-cent infrastructure sales tax to be used for only infrastructure for the county to repair and everything else. Everybody talks about impact fees, but impact fees can only be used for new development. After 5, 10, and 15 years worth of new development, somebody's got to pay the toll for the maintenance. The schools, John Horn is my partner, and he leads impact on the schools. And basically, he would tell you that $60 savings by not renewing the half-cent sales tax, $60 savings costs the schools $30 million. And everybody that's been following our schools, we need that $30 million. I was fortunate enough to be on the Citizens Financial Oversight Committee. We met for 3 months, twice a month, 3 hours each time, and it led to a 13-0 vote to put the infrastructure sales tax to the commissioners. The commissioners voted unanimously to accept it. So I want to share with you a little bit of why I did that. And I only have a few minutes. Let's go. This is what you're going to see for number 6. You'll see the same thing for number 7. Very short and thing. Don't worry too much about it. Vote yes. A half cent for Manatee County for better roads and bridges, and if John were here, he would say schools. For safer communities, safer schools, better public spaces, better parks, new pools. Every dollar stays in the Manatee County. The cost be shared a third by outsiders. Any visitor, tourist, etc., when they pay their sales tax, goes to contribute to us. Mac Caraway's good for saying he loves a third discount on anything. Helps keep our property taxes lower. We're already the lowest property tax of any county on the west coast of Florida. And there is no other sustainable way to pay for the maintenance on our growth. Next. This real quick, if you see Manatee on the bottom, Manatee County in the red, just notice the number of dots. The number of dots tells you the sources of revenue. We have 4 sources of revenue, 3 of which are property tax related. Other counties around us and comparable have 8, 9, and 10 sources of revenue. Next. Property tax facts. This hit home to me. 130,000 residential property owners paid $119 million in taxes. 60% of the county revenue comes from property taxes. 1/3 of the property owners pay 2/3 of the price of the taxes. 1/3 pays 2/3. 30,000 people pay less than $250 a year. And you stop and think, without an income tax, where the heck is the revenue coming from? 3,500 people pay nothing in property taxes. Now you can say that's trailer parks, communities, low-end condos, etc. But you drive by them in the summer and there's nobody there. They must have another home someplace. They use the roads, they use EMS, they use our beaches. Next. This is the one that tells the story. Revenue is 17% less today than it was in 2007. We have 50,000 more residents than we had in 2007, growing at 5,000 residents a year. The staff, the county staff, is 300 people less today than it was in 2007. You see what happened in, go back, 2007. In 2008, 2009, 2010, people had lost the value of their homes. They came into the county and said, hey, lower my taxes, and they did. But in 2008, we had a doubling of the homestead exemption and the portability tax. Also, there's a cap on the increases in the real estate taxes in our county of no more than 3%, and it's been 0.6, 0.7, 0.8 for the last 3 years. So it was quick to get a 10 or 15 or 20% discount on your house because the value went down, appropriately so, but the cap puts into place, it doesn't come back that quickly. So we're 17% less today than we were in 2007, 2008. All the counties around us, the star, they have, in fact, a infrastructure sales tax. DeSoto and Hardy have is a different definition, but they use that for maintenance of the roads. Next. You can go online. This is the 71% for transportation and roads. Every project, click on that project, and you'll see what it is. Next. Law enforcement, 15%. Their projects, the jail, and the things that they've got going on. Stubby's been in front of us and talked to us. Next. Parks and green spaces. Go online, manatee.org, and check on one of these, and you can see what happens. Next. This is an example of 15th Street East, what it will look like. It's already not quite shovel-ready, but the Florida Transportation Department's already looking at this. This is the difference of what some of these things will look like to us. Half cent forward, half cent for the schools, a half cent for better roads and bridges, safer communities, better public spaces. I'm Chuck Slater. We have a sign-up sheet out front. We have signs to take with you. We're more than happy to meet with any other groups and talk. I apologize I had to rush this, but I was asked to keep it short. In front of you, you have a forward Manatee, some great materials inside it. Please vote yes on 6 and 7. It's for the betterment of our county. Thank you. And it gives me distinct pleasure to introduce Casey Wells.
Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate that. That's a very important issue, obviously, to Manatee County residents, and Chuck does a great job of explaining all that, and he has some great materials on there and on your tables as well, so I appreciate that. As Chuck said, my name is Casey Welch. I'm the Assistant Vice President for External and Governmental Affairs at USF Sarasota Manatee. I see one of my Bulls guys back there. Go Bulls. On behalf of the Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce, the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance, the Manatee Chamber of Commerce, and the Institute of Public Policy and Leadership at USF Sarasota Manatee, welcome again and thank you for coming. Just want to take a moment as someone who was born and raised here in Sarasota County and work and live also in Manatee County and raising my family out here in Lakewood Ranch. I just want to thank each respective chamber for working so closely together to make this event a reality. I hope we continue to do these in the future. The critical importance of the people in this room working together will ensure the political viability and sustain the economic future of our region for generations to come, and I think that's very important. Now, before I introduce our honorable guest, I want to reiterate to him our agreement that I'm not going to tell any stories about us back in 4-H if you don't tell any stories about me working for you in D.C. Is that agreed? Okay, we're good. All right. Our guest speaker today was elected to serve our second term as Florida's Commissioner of Agriculture in 2014. In that capacity, he oversees the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services and serves as a member of Florida's cabinet. Previously, Commissioner Putnam served 5 terms as a congressman for Florida's 12th Congressional District in the United States House of Representatives. He was recognized as a leader on a variety of issues, including water, energy, government transparency, and efficiency. Commissioner Putnam was acknowledged for his efforts to bring comprehensive Everglades restoration, reform food safety laws, modernize programs to ensure Florida agriculture remains a leader throughout the nation, and increase access to fresh fruits and vegetables to counter childhood obesity. While in Congress, Commissioner Putnam was elected by his peers to serve as the Republican Policy Chairman during the 109th Congress and Chairman of the House Republican Conference for the 110th Congress. That is the highest elected leadership position any Floridian of either party has ever held in Washington, D.C. Commissioner Putnam has also served as a member of the House Committees on Government Reform, Agriculture, Rules, and Financial Services. Before he was elected to Congress, Commissioner Putnam served in the Florida House of Representatives from 1996 to 2000. And for all you Gator fans out there, he's a graduate of the University of Florida with a Bachelor of Science in Food and Resource Economics. Yeah, there you go. Commissioner Putnam is a 5th-generation Floridian who grew up in a citrus and beef cattle industry. He and his wife, Melissa, have 4 wonderful children in Bartow. So it's my pleasure as a dual citizen of Manatee and Sarasota counties to introduce you all the distinguished gentleman from Imperial Polk County, Adam Putnam.
Thank you, Casey. Sit down, sit down, sit down. Sit down. Thank you. Sit down. It may not be any good. May not be worth getting up for. Thank you very much for that kind introduction, and under the principle of mutually assured destruction, I won't share any stories, but I do have a question for you, Casey. As a proud graduate of Florida State and an employee of USF, who'd you cheer for last weekend? It's a treat to be with you, all of you, and this is a very efficiently run program. Y'all are like, you don't waste any time. Y'all are ready to get back to work so you can pay your extra half-cent for schools and moving forward. Earlier we were talking about the chamber retreat and how you get to know each other in a little bit different way when you've done whatever you do at your chamber retreats. But whenever I go to a chamber event and people talk about these types of things, and frequently, you go to someplace really nice, but you're already living in a really nice place. And so, oddly enough, I was speaking to a group at the Fort Lauderdale Chamber about 2 years ago, and they had just finished their retreat. And before I tell you where they went, just think about how many chambers in Kansas or South Dakota would think that it's insane that the Fort Lauderdale Chamber needs to go anywhere to retreat. but they'd gone to Ocean Reef. So, you know, it's a first world problem to be a chamber in Florida where people are knocking down your door to be Floridians. And it is nice to see this, as Casey called it, the dual citizenship, the détente of Manatee and Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch coming together. Between Lakewood Ranch and Dolphin Aviation, there's sort of the Switzerland of the Minnesota greater metropolitan region. And I'm glad to see that we could put our knives and clubs down to come together to talk about a shared vision for our state and the importance of the issues that we face. So Florida, for so many people, so many folks who move here and want to be a part of our wonderful state, and now we're back up to 1,000 new people moving here every day on a permanent basis. For most of them, Florida is a prize. It's a reward that they give themselves for a life well lived someplace else. There's a great book written by a Florida author called The Orchid Thief, where I really kind of picked up on this theme that she's got this great passage about, you know, about the diversity of Florida. And Florida is the prize for a life well lived someplace else. And as a fifth generation Floridian, I'm proud of the fact that we live in a state that people seek us out from all over the world, but I want us to be more than a prize for a life well lived someplace else. I want us to be the jumping off point for the American dream. I want people to come, I want the same type of creative, entrepreneurial, successful, bright person who's going to end up in Florida at some point anyway. I want them 3.5 decades sooner, so that they launch their business here and grow their business here and raise their children in our schools and participate in our congestion on 41 and understand and have a different time horizon, and more importantly, a different emotional attachment to this state that we all get to call home. And that's a very important distinction in terms of that thought process about the issues that we face as a state. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. As Commissioner of Agriculture, you're probably wondering if I'm not a little bit off message, but Commissioner of Agriculture is kind of an interesting job in Florida. It is a member of the Florida Cabinet. In Florida, we have this Reconstructionist Constitution where 4 members of the Cabinet, the Governor plus the Attorney General, the CFO, and the Ag Commissioner, sit as the Board of Directors for our state and jointly oversee the banking industry, utilities, insurance, state revenue, the state pension fund, clemency, statewide law enforcement. All of those are really collective decisions by the Cabinet. And so when I came in as Agriculture Commissioner, I really had this vision for transforming the department. We threw away the quill pens, and we really evaluated what the proper role is for a Department of Agriculture in a state that's now the 3rd most populous state, but where agriculture is still exceedingly important. It's a $120 billion industry. You see it here in these communities. And what is that proper role? And we really focused on nutrition issues, water issues, energy issues, and education as part of this broader sense of what it is to be in agriculture. People have this sense that agriculture is old McDonald's farm, right? I mean, they think, as we eat, as we shop in a grocery store that on average has something like 65,000 SKUs in a normal grocery store, as we raise a generation that doesn't remember the concept of seasons. You can get watermelon at Christmas, you can get watermelon in 4th of July. I mean, you've got this whole generation that doesn't even understand the notion of how we feed our planet, and we've got 1.5% of the population who are active in farming, and we have to feed 10 billion people on this earth by 2050. And really, it's the American farmer who's going to be able to do that. And right here in your backyard is someone who exemplifies the fact that agriculture is a high-tech, high-skill industry. It is a powerful economic driver for our state, but it's also an important part of this broader stewardship ethic that agriculture has always enjoyed in our state and frankly everywhere. And as commissioner, we give this award away every year called the Agriculture Environmental Leadership Award. And it's to recognize growers who go above and beyond the call of duty and really implement best practices to show the rest of the industry how it can be done and how it can be good for business and good for the environment. And this year's award winner is Alan Jones, who is right here. Please stand. So Alan grows, he rotates his green beans and his spring potatoes. He restores nitrogen and organic matter back into the soil through that rotation. He's implemented a new nutritional program, and the results of that are that he reduced fertilizer use by 30% and reduced water use by 70%. And he does it, and it's good for business, and it is good for the bottom line, and it is good for all of us. And Alan's just one example. He's an extraordinary example, but he's one example of what's going on all over our nation in terms of the improvements in efficiency and yield. That's how we're going to feed the world. I mean, there's really two debates that go on in the world about food production. In the United States and in parts of Western Europe, there's this debate about organic, fair trade, non-hormone, non-GMO, the list of hyphens that we attach to our food. And in the rest of the planet, it's how are we going to feed our people? So hunger in the United States is real, but it is a food distribution problem. And it is one that is eminently solvable with all of us working together. Hunger in the rest of the world is genuine hunger. Like, there isn't enough to go around. And the difference between that model and the model that we have, where the number one public health threat is obesity, is the productivity of an industry where only 1.5% of the population even chooses to engage in it. And so when you look at that, and this was one of the first things that we tackled when I came in, because Florida's got this special role in that, because in Florida, we grow things that your mother would be proud for you to eat. Green beans and potatoes in Alan's case, citrus, blueberries, peaches, beef cattle, dairy cattle, things that your mother wants you to eat, things that kids like to eat. And what do we serve in our schools but stuff that the prisoners wouldn't accept? And we've done that for about 60 years. And so we train kids from, pre-K until 18. We feed them this garbage, and we define ketchup as a vegetable. And, and then we wonder why at the end of their life, we again, as taxpayers, are picking up the tab for a healthcare situation where 60% of our healthcare costs are managing diet-related illnesses. So we've connected what we grow in Florida to our schools. Our lunch ladies have embraced it. We've treated them like the professionals that they are in terms of the preparation and the menu. We can save money because we're leveraging our buying power. We're connecting farmers to that school so that there's a sense of ownership. And we've eliminated this embarrassing situation where Plant City High School is serving Mexican strawberries, or where you've got a school in Ruskin that's importing their tomatoes, or a kid in Orange County who's drinking Brazilian orange juice. I mean, how embarrassing is that? It's just indefensible. But we're doing it in a way that the kids like it. We're putting Florida products on the plate. We're doing it at a better price, and we're helping everybody. So hopefully, over time, we're bending that healthcare cost curve as we're teaching kids about how to eat well and how to eat in schools. Because all of us are spending, as taxpayers, $1 billion a year just in Florida on the school lunch and breakfast program. Why wouldn't we serve them what we grow in Florida when what we grow they'll eat and it's in season during the school year? No other state can say that almost, except for California and Texas. Everybody else, there's no such thing as fresh fruits and vegetables from Ohio in January during the school year. They're going to eat what we produce. So why wouldn't Floridians eat what we produce? So that's just one example of how we've really tried to modernize this broader view of the department. Water in Florida. Changing gears to water. It is the golden goose of our state. We have any realtors in the room? Come on, really? There's not a realtor here? Nobody's passing out business cards? So when you're advertising a property, you try to work in water somewhere, right? Water view, even if you've got to kind of stand a certain way and hope that the tree's not blowing the palm fronds in to obstruct your view. If there's water anywhere around that property, you want people to know about it because they're going to pay a premium. People come to our beaches, and when we have unnecessary discharges from the lake and they foul our beaches, it's a problem. When we have red tide at the beaches, it's a problem. When we have a $100 billion agriculture industry that can't be guaranteed access to water, it's a problem. If we're serious about diversifying our economy, bringing in manufacturing, things that tend to be water-intensive processes, it's a problem. So water, in a state where most people are from somewhere else, and in a state that, unlike Texas or other places like that have this common sense of identity, the closest thing that we have to a common identity in Florida is affinity for water. Fresh water, salt water, East Coast, West Coast, springs, lakes, rivers. It doesn't matter. We all have this connection to the water. How many of us own a boat? Doesn't have to be a big boat, just any kind of boat. How many of us like to take our kids fishing? How many of us like to, any of these Gator fans, tube the Itch-Tuckney when you were in school? Believe me, the statute of limitations have expired on the bottle of Jack that you were dragging behind your inner tube. It's about water for building, for growing, for supporting our population, for adding to our population, for supporting the natural resources that make Florida, Florida. And so, as a state, we're past time to have a comprehensive water policy that focuses on both supply, in other words, enough water for everyone, and water quality, taking care of what we have. And we passed a significant piece of legislation last year that we now need to build on. As a state, we face a 1 billion gallon per day shortfall of water by 2030. But anybody that was through that downpour yesterday realizes that we frequently get enough water in Florida to meet our needs, but it just washes away. It goes to tide. So water storage, investing in reclaimed water technology, alternative water supplies, deep well storage, all of those things combined, above ground storage, shallow water storage, deep water storage, using water more than once, benefits our urban communities, it benefits agriculture, and it benefits the environment. And we have to have a plan for that water infrastructure because it's not free. And as Floridians, we've internalized the idea that, growth costs money. We got too many people on 75. We need another lane of 75. It's going to be expensive. You need to expand I-4. It's going to be expensive. We've kind of internalized that. You read the paper, it's going to be a $65 million interchange. You put the paper down and you move on. You don't even blink at the price of transportation infrastructure. But everybody's shocked to learn that water infrastructure is expensive. And to have a situation where, and this happened last year in Tampa Bay, we had this great headline, seagrass, turtlegrass, eelgrass restored in Tampa Bay is the highest acreage of sea bottom grasses in 40 years. In other words, the bay is as clean as it's been in 40 years. The next week, we had a tropical storm. Municipalities dumped their sewage out because their systems are overwhelmed. This year, that happened again on a much larger scale. So water is not somebody else's problem. It's not just a Pinellas issue or a City of St. Pete issue or an Everglades issue. This is statewide. It's Apalachicola, population this ballroom, whose economy is in shambles because of inadequate water coming down from Georgia, which has crashed the bay, robbed us all of the best oysters in the world, and put a lot of people out of work. It's the Swanee Valley where if Florida didn't have the Everglades, we would be famous for our first magnitude springs. It's the original tourist attraction. Nowhere else on the planet has as many first magnitude springs as we do. A third of the shortfall that we face statewide is in the heart of our tourism industry in Central Florida, around Orlando, but not just Orlando. It includes places like Polk County. So this is everybody's problem, from the Keys to Apalachicola. And having a method and a plan to invest in infrastructure, getting people off septic and onto sewer, upgrading sewer systems so they don't use Tampa Bay as their backup plan, cleaning up the Everglades, restoring our springs, and this is all of our problems. There's no simple, easy, snap your fingers, sprinkle the pixie dust out there to fix this. This has got to be a long-term, expensive commitment that we embark on the same way that we view transportation infrastructure. Nobody expects that we're going to snap our fingers and make congestion go away, but we grind it out year after year, prioritizing projects, working through that work plan, reprioritizing. And the same has to be true when it comes to water infrastructure. But that has traditionally been an out-of-sight, out-of-mind type of issue. But for Florida's future, it has to be a priority. The next key piece of Florida's vision for us being more than just a prize for a life well lived someplace else is education. And I'm pleased to be sitting with USF. I think USF in Florida, not just this campus, but the entire USF system, has an outstanding chance of being Florida's next member of the prestigious AAU universities, the universities that are known for a commitment to research. Moffitt, which has the affiliation with USF, just received the highest rating from the National Cancer Institute. We live in a state where, we're Knowles, we're Gators, we're Bulls, we're whatever, but as a system of higher education, we have to continue to improve. Look at the disaster that California is, right? I mean, I don't want to be like California, except in one regard. They cover up an awful lot of their sins and an awful lot of their mistakes by having a world-class higher education system that, in spite of the high cost of living, in spite of the unaffordability, in spite of the traffic, in spite of the smog, still attracts quality young people and the creativity that that spawns to really diversify their economy because of the quality of their system. Not just Stanford, not just Berkeley, not just Caltech, but the system. And all of our schools get better if our system gets better. And you can't be the cheapest and the best at everything. It won't work. And our K-12 system gets better when our university system is better, because you're producing graduates who have higher expectations. You're producing parents who expect more choices and customization in learning for their children. You're producing a teacher corps that is up to speed on the latest and greatest in teaching methods and content. You have an ecosystem that allows us to build on the foundation of Florida, which has historically been construction and tourism and agriculture, to do more so that young people from our communities don't have to leave our communities to find better jobs. When I graduated from the University of Florida, most of my classmates left Florida. They went to Atlanta, they went to Charlotte, they went to Austin, a couple of them went to Boston. Not many went to Silicon Valley back then. We weren't that smart. But most of my classmates left Florida. That's not an acceptable outcome for us to build the kind of Florida that we all want to have, that strikes that right balance between opportunities, diversity in our economy, and strengthening the industries that brought us to the dance to begin with, those pillars of construction and tourism and agriculture. All of those factors really come back down to education. We have lost the connection between educators and the parents and the students. That trust is broken down, and we have to rebuild that trust. I have 4 students in the Polk County Public School System. They're basically going to the same schools I went to. They went to different elementary school, but same junior high, now middle school, same high school. But their education experience is completely different than mine was. And we're talking about Bartow. We're not talking about Sarasota or Bradenton. I mean, cosmopolitan, sophisticated places like your children go. I'm talking about Bartow. They have choices that I never could have dreamed of. When I was in high school, you might have had 3 AP classes to choose from. I have a daughter who's in IB. She's taken 1 class from Polk State, dual enrollment, during 5th period when she's supposed to be at lunch. She's like got 3 different orders from a Chinese menu that meet her needs as a student, which are different than my next daughter's needs and her options in a small town, in a school that hasn't physically changed much at all in 25 years, but is offering customized learning. That is an extraordinary shift that I don't think we're giving our schools the credit that they deserve for, meeting the individual needs of that child. And so bringing parents and putting the needs of the student first helps us raise our expectations, helps us have higher standards, and empower those kids to get there. That's not reform for the sake of reform. That's helping the next generation recognize what we all see and are fearful of, which is that the world is changing so quickly, we don't know what jobs are going to disappear that used to be a guarantee for any kid that had a college diploma. And that's just not so anymore. The disruption that's occurring across all fields is going to impact not just unskilled labor, which we've known for a long time, but it's going to impact skilled, highly educated people. Learning is not going to end with a college diploma. It's going to be an ongoing process, a lifelong process for people to keep up. Kids aren't going to stay, these millennials aren't going to stay in the same job for 30 years and get a watch at the end of it. It's going to change the way they buy real estate. It's going to change the way that they move around. It's going to change their purchasing habits. It's going to change their workforce needs. And if Florida can get on the front end of that, then we will be more than just the prize that people seek out. We'll be more than just a safe haven for the wealth that you've created someplace else. We'll be on the leading edge of that wealth creation. That's what Florida can be with investing in these quality of life issues, the infrastructure issues, the education issues, workforce development issues. That's how we do more than brag about a 4.7% unemployment rate, which is extraordinary. I mean, even when I was in college, 5% was considered full employment. We're below that, and people still feel bad about the economy. That's what's extraordinary. And these two counties' unemployment rate is better than the state average. But that's not the only metric. How do we raise average wages in Florida to meet or exceed the national average? How do we bring in not just any job that'll come, and I'm not a job snob, any job is better than no job, but how do we continue to bring in the types of jobs that our kids are best suited for, that Florida's business climate wants to attract, that allows us to lift those average wages so that everybody rises together, not just the people who can afford a place on the coast. Because there's a lot more to Florida than just the part that's on the coast, and we have an obligation to bring it all up. And that means a real emphasis on rural economic development and value-added jobs in agriculture and in energy and in a host of other industries, logistics, health sciences. Those are the things that we can do as Floridians. And so to bring this back in to where I began, we live in a state where many of our voters, residents, citizens still view themselves in their former life. Well, I'm really a Buckeye. I'm really a Michigan guy. I'm really a Cornell guy. And that makes sense. If you spend most of your life in that state, you raise your kids in that state, you support the symphony or the arts or the Little League in that state, it makes sense that you're going to identify with where you spent most of your life. But it makes public policy making a little bit harder because we have to bring all those personalities together to say, we're going to solve the problems that are going to impact the next generation. It's not just the Band-Aid to get through the next election or the next fiscal year. Water is not going to be solved overnight. Congestion is not going to be resolved in one election cycle. And so we need leaders who can bring Miami and Wauchula together, who bring Sarasota and McAlpin or Live Oak wrapped around the same objective. Whether it's water, infrastructure, education, we all love Florida. That's either why we stayed or why we came. And the things that make Florida, Florida are the things that I've talked about today. Opportunities for our young people, extraordinary natural resources, and a climate that's second to none. I wouldn't trade our problems or our potential with any other state in the country. But it requires sustained leadership to embrace the type of business leaders who make it happen day in and day out, as embodied in our chambers and in our farm bureaus and in our different associations that bring our professions together. And then we look at the issues that cut across all those professions. What does the farmer and the architect and the museum curator and the hotel operator all need? A talented workforce, a business climate that people are drawn to, a tax environment that's not confiscatory. I was in New York last week and a guy stood up and said, he was a big hedge fund guy or whatever, and he said to his friends, Greenwich is done, I've moved to Florida, and all of you are fools if you don't move too, because what you save in taxes, your house will be free. We need to sign that guy up. Who needs Enterprise Florida when we got that guy? But these issues that bind us together, not the issues that drive a wedge between us, between the east side of the county and the west side of the county, or who's on which side of I-75, or whether Manatee or Sarasota is going to get it. The things that bring us together are a vision for these overarching core issues that make living in Florida the blessing that it is. And having the type of leadership who understands that, who brings us together and sets our eyes a little bit higher, is going to be what keeps Florida the special place that it is and makes it even better, so that our children and grandchildren can look back on the decisions that we've made today and be grateful that we did it. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you. Well, I'm glad it was worth standing for. Any questions? Really? That'll work. Everybody's still tired after that debate last night. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much, Casey, for the invitation.
Thank you. Just 1 second, sir. On behalf of the University of South Florida System, I'd like to present the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services with a book written by one of our distinguished history professors at the USF St. Petersburg campus on the 450 years of the history of St. Augustine. And Commissioner, if you accept this on behalf of the department, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. Be good coffee, table wait. Uh-oh. Senator Bennett.
So it's on me. I have not filed, but stay tuned. You will be. Thank you. Thank you.
See the stay tuned headlines tomorrow. Okay. Thanks, Senator. Last, I want to introduce the chair of the Sarasota Chamber of Commerce Board, Lisa Krause.
Well, I am here to wrap things up. What an amazing program. I had the pleasure of getting to know Commissioner Putnam a little bit better because he was gracious to give so much of his time with Leadership Florida Class 33 class. So thank you, Commissioner. My colleagues and I at FCCI have been following Commissioner Putnam for a very long time. And yes, we're behind you all the way. So wish you the best. This event was made possible, as you've heard earlier, by a partnership with the Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Steve Kior. And the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance, thank you, Heather, as well as the Manatee Chamber of Commerce. We thank Bob Bartz and the rest of the team behind all those great organizations. Thank you. We particularly appreciate the hard work of Casey Welch from the Institute of Public Policy and Leadership at the University of South Florida, Sarasota, Manatee, in bringing Commissioner Putnam to us today. Hashtag working together. Let's also give a round of applause to the Polo Grill. Amazing lunch here, great service. And be sure to mark your calendars October 19th as we welcome our Chief Financial Officer of the state of Florida, Jeff Atwater, and registration for that event can be found on everyone's website. So thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your week.